We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Wonder if everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Careful here, you're under the edge.
Thank you.
Could have been a little bit of a...
Bad. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Alderman Lauer.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Malumboy.
Here.
Alderman Burgess.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black. Alderman Hallman.
Here.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and start with public comment. And you have up to 3 minutes, and we've got quite a few people here that are speaking this evening. So I'm going to read them in groups of 3, so if you could please be prepared to come forward so we can handle this as expeditiously as possible. And also, just to be clear, we do not respond directly to people in public comment. It's not kind of counterpoint. If you do want to come and actually get questions answered or engage in dialogue every Friday before a regular Monday City Council meeting, right over there where our department heads are sitting in what we call the fishbowl, you can come by between 4:30 and 5:30, talk about anything. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. You can get sometimes answers or problems taken care of in real time. And so I would certainly welcome you to those events, please. We're going to go ahead and start with Richard Weitengruber, and then Barbara Stewart, and Gary Lambert.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Richard Weitengruber. I live at 1222 South Mason, Bloomington, Illinois. I am president of the McLean County Building and Construction Trades Council, and I'm here representing 16 different trades and over 2,000 members that reside in McLean County. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of item D on your regular agenda. That's a consideration of an ordinance approving an economic incentive agreement to support the retention and expansion of the Kroger Company in the city of Bloomington. This agreement is a positive for the city of Bloomington residents and our construction members. Construction jobs are a significant part of our local economy. Anytime tax incentives are given to a project, there should be local return, and that includes using local contractors and local workers. Companies and workers that are based here return their paycheck to the local economy through mortgages, property taxes, and buying their clothing and necessities here. However, we do have some concerns. In recent experience, Kroger has done their store remodeling in this community with non-McLean County contractors and out-of-area workers. Those are dollars that could be reinvested in our community that are leaving. In the case of the local Kroger remodeling projects, many of the workers claim to be from Chicago, Texas, and so many of the workers claim to be not even know where they were from. Those dollars were not reinvested in McLean County. Those dollars bought groceries, vehicles, and paid taxes in other counties. It is great when a company wants to expand here and play a bigger, larger role in our local economy. We welcome that. But for McLean County to get the largest return on its dollars, companies that are asking for tax or other special financing should be required to hire locally. Spend local, hire local, and build a better Bloomington and a better McLean County. Every local contractor hired and every construction worker put to work strengthens our local economy and helps maintain decent jobs and opportunity for local people. We ask that you encourage the Kroger Company to use local contractors and local workers. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your service to the City of Bloomington. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We go then to Barbara Stewart, and then Gary Lambert, and then Alton Franklin.
I'm Barbara Stewart. My address is 918 Broadway in Normal. And I thank you, Mayor and Council members, for this opportunity to ask you to consider openly a TIF sharing agreement with the Bloomington schools. I represent only myself. I have been concerned about TIFs ever since 1989 when I was on the county board. The main problem for schools is the TIF time length. TIFs end when the project ends, so the length can be only a few years. However, since the initial length is 23 years and 12 more years can be added easily, the maximum time allowed is actually 35 years. This would cover over 2 kindergarten to 12th grade time spans. A long time to go without a tax increase these days. At any time, a TIF district can negotiate with local schools to share a mutually satisfactory percent of the tax value increase. Illinois cities have negotiated over 200 such sharing agreements, sharing annually, not just every possible 35 years. One special consideration relates to a state reform effort in 2013. Unlike most other states, Illinois' TIF law lacks 3 important requirements: transparency, shorter time lengths, and input from other taxing bodies. Not a good law. This means local uses of TIF law can be unfair. Please note that the reform bill was defeated. There was a strong lawyer, realtor, municipal authority lobby. There is, of course, a problem in sharing TIF funds only with schools because other bodies have tax needs too. If they are included, the school amount shrinks. However, choosing schools only is a logical thing to do since TIF law already singles out the city for preference. Since schools cannot create TIF districts, they must depend on the council's goodwill, not a simple decision for the council. My past ties with schools convince me that they would welcome sharing, but they hesitate to openly pit municipal concerns against school needs. I have no such hesitation. I would guess that there are many others who would also speak for the schools, but they do not understand TIFs, which are complicated.
Thank you very much. Barbara, your time is up.
And healthy schools are, of course, both important, since the well-being of each depends on the well-being of the other. But there's no doubt that the school's need for TIF sharing should be considered and considered directly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move to Gary Lambert, Alton Franklin, and then Anthony Grant.
Sorry?
Your time's up. I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'd like to thank staff for putting the budget out on the website today. I took a little bit of time to look through it. I moved to Bloomington almost exactly 4 years ago, February of 2012. And I went out to the budget for 2013, and it was around $75 million for the general fund. I see in the 2017 general fund budget, it's roughly $105 million. I think those numbers are right. I got them written down, but memory being what it is. Anyway, what it ended up being was a 40% increase over that 4 years period of time. That's a lot. In the budget, it showed the Coliseum being increased by $4.5 million, and then there was a note saying that that was because we were moving operational expenses over to it. And I hope that during the explanation tonight or at some time, that can be explained a little bit. What I didn't see, I just glanced at it, were the cuts. Mr. Black is not here tonight, but a couple months ago, he referenced the problem with cutting Zumba from our budget. It looks like Zuma, at least for another year, is here to stay. Thank you.
Okay. Elton Franklin, Anthony Grant, and then Nathan Bridges.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington, Illinois. Several things on my mind tonight. To tag on to what Gary had to say, I think it's appalling, the numbers game that's continually attempted to be run around here, where we just can't help it, and if we cut anything, it's going to have to be safety and fire and infrastructure. Can't be the communications director, who has no perceived benefit on the part of anybody that I've talked with. The assistants that are now in thrall to Mr. Hales. You know, there's a lot of money that goes out in dribs and drabs. And it's really a sad statement that, as Mr. Lambert said, we're going through a 40% increase. And there's not a single cut, nothing. That, to me, is just appalling. On to another matter. I really like Kroger. I think it's a great store. I shop there a lot. And to be honest, I'd like to emulate them a little bit. So it isn't economically feasible for me to buy a better house. But if the city will give me 10%, then I could probably afford it. There's a certain inequality that seems to be going on around here. Developers don't walk on water, they're 6 inches above it, according to the things that I see coming out of this council. They're forgiven, they're given abatements, there's all kinds of crap where everybody but the citizens are considered. It's getting really bad, folks, and I think time the next election comes around, you're going to hear the noise. Thank you.
Okay. Anthony Grant, Nathan Bridges, and Scott Garth.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon, or this evening, I suppose. I'm up here talking on behalf of, I'm a property manager of Phoenix Towers here in Bloomington. I spoke with Alderman Schmidt last week. Connect Transit is preparing to pull our bus stop. I have over 160 residents that are senior and disabled residents that require busing to get around. They want to pull the fixed stop from our location. The solution that they have for our residents is to walk at least a block uphill in snow, rain, regardless of weather, which has caused great stresses within the building and issues within the residents there as well. I know on the agenda this evening, from what I read in the paper, is over $600,000 is supposed to go to Connect Transit. We had Connect Transit out to the building to explain the process of how they're determining which routes were going to be cut, where the changes were going to be, and I was appalled, truly to the sense of the word appalling, that they did not take into account any status of the riders. Our service was getting cut because we did not have the same volume of riders as another location that were several blocks away. They did not take into account the demographics of those people, which I think is a huge issue from a methodology perspective of identifying what routes to cut. We were told that we had an average of 3 riders an hour at our stop, while another one had 12, and that was the reason that route was going to get preference, was because of the number of riders. That is closer to Wesleyan University. I'd be willing to bet anybody in here that those that are riding would be considered able-bodied individuals. So I asked the council, well, I know you don't have any direct influence over the routes of Connect Transit. You do control some purse strings, as well as I know the city manager sits on the board as well. And I asked that the council please lobby or to speak with Connect Transit about taking into account the considerations of the disabled and the senior within our community. I hear often from my residents that they helped build this town to where it's at this point. Without their hard work and their years of dedication to this community, it wouldn't be where it's at now. And they feel as though they're getting left out and left aside and tossed aside because they're not paying as much. I raised these concerns at Connect Transit when they came out. They said that they could use the Connect Mobile
the Connect Mobile is at least twice as expensive for my residents who are on fixed incomes or minimal incomes at all. So that is a huge burden for them to bear just to get to their locations. I'm not even going to touch base on the spontaneity of trips that we all enjoy who have the opportunity to drive. What they wanted us to do is to schedule at least 24 hours in advance, which is the requirement of the Connect Mobile mobility service. So I just again ask the council to please do what you can in exerting some influence upon Connect Transit to consider those in our community that are disabled or senior residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Nathan Bridges, Scott Garth, and Patricia Martin.
Hey everyone. My name is Nathan Bridges, and I'm a board member from the Kamlara Off-Road Bicycle Association, also known as Corba. And in case you have never heard of Corba, our Corba organization works closely with the county and park officials out at Lake Evergreen, Kamlara Park, to maintain and improve the trail system within Kamlara Park. On behalf of the Corba board and all of our members, we are in full support of the Kalamea feasibility study, which is consent agenda item G. We really value this developing partnership with the city, and we thank all of those involved so far who have helped and supported us. We really appreciate the opportunity to bring the extensive experience of Corba and use our willing and able volunteer base to take this abused parcel of land on the west side of Bloomington and make it into something fantastic that will be accessible to a wide variety of people within the community. We ask for your support on the Kalamea study tonight, and we also ask for your continued support moving forward into the future. Corba is very excited about the potential here, and we look forward to creating this park in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott Garth and Patricia Martin.
Hi, my name is Scott Garth, and I'm the redeveloper of the former Wildwood Industries building located at 903 Morrissey Drive. I'm requesting that you remove case SP-06-15 regarding Americo's request for a special use zoning waiver from your consent agenda. I would further request that you deny it or send it back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for further consideration. 6 years ago, when I started exploration for a site here in Bloomington, staff told me there was no reason to bother applying for a waiver and that even reuse of long vacant buildings on Veterans Parkway would not be reason enough to override Bloomington's guiding plans, principles, and policies. So now I question how I could not even get past staff, yet this case was placed on the consent agenda for City Council as if it was just another routine matter. I would really hate to find out the relationships or politics prevailed in jamming this through without the opportunity for public comment and transparency. A special use waiver runs with the land regardless of what happens to ownership in the future. The lack of restrictions applied to this waiver cannot be added later. If no restrictions are being applied to the waiver, why didn't the property just go through rezoning to industrial rather than unrestricted future of permissive B1 use? This could result in a very unsightly facility in the future that could have been avoided if certain restrictions were included. For example, our industry is what we call use portable storage units. These are placed on skids. By doing this, we don't need permits. This is just one way to get around the current zoning without conditions being applied. As you consider this, I would encourage you to ask these questions. Are there negative effects on the surrounding property? What aspects of the proposed use make it usually incompatible in a zoning district? Is this use consistent with the plans, policies, and goals of this council for a retail entrance corridor? Are we applying a fair standard for competitive redevelopment, or are we favoring particular groups or individuals? Why is this special use permit being forwarded to you with essentially no restrictions? Would the Planning Commission have recommended a rezoning to industrial zoning? Would you be willing to rezone this property to an industrial district? My guess is that if you ask yourself those questions, or if you allow the appropriate amount of transparency and public discussion, you will find reason to delay this vote and eventually to deny it completely. I strongly urge you to remain as true to the comprehensive plan and your vision for this retail corridor today as you have over the last 6 years when other redevelopments were proposed and denied.
Please remove case SP-0615 from your consent agenda and either deny it or send it back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for further consideration. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. And then last but not least, Patricia Martin.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to back the man's comments about Connect Transit wholeheartedly. It's a miserable setup at the moment for a lot of us. I want to talk some more about the posters I've been working on for Not in Our Town. We've been communicating, for example, with PATH and the East Central Illinois Area Agency on Aging for suggestions as to appropriate text for the subject of elder abuse, as well as possible locations for placement throughout the city and county. We've also added another subject, suicide prevention. Martin Ross has been in contact with Coroner Kathy Davis and has created some striking images for this too, and I want to show you some examples. Okay, here's one of them. The job, family, relationships, life. It only seems like you've come to the end of the road. Counseling, intervention, and communications. Suicide is preventable. And here's another image that he's put up. The benefits are apparent. The posters acting as beacons for those who are troubled, showing through strong visuals and text that there are places where they can go for help. This can also be done through strategic placement in libraries, buses, and hospitals, for example, where people tend to linger. And the hospitals and buses are already acting as safe zones too, which I think you probably know. In addition, the posters also call attention to the fact that abusive situations are criminal, especially when directed toward the weaker elements of the population, the young and the old, and therefore should act as warnings to those who might instigate them. There are still other subjects we plan to talk about later, mental health for one. I went to a Mental Health Advisory Council Board meeting this morning at the Health Department, thank you, Mr. Hales, and will share the results of that meeting with you later. I was given a flyer on the mental health first aid training program that exists in both hospitals, and I quote, "You are more likely to encounter someone in an emotional or mental crisis than someone having a heart attack." Another quote, "Sometimes first aid isn't a bandage or CPR or calling 911. Sometimes first aid is you." And this is an example of the flyer that they're passing out, and you can sign up for these courses, which is what I intend to do. Okay. And I'd like to end by showing you some additional examples of the elder abuse posters, which I believe I sent to all of you in any case. Okay. These are in color. Look at me. I'm not invisible. I'm a person. Neglect is one form of elder abuse, not in our town. Don't threaten me. I may seem weak, but I'm human. Intimidation is one form of elder abuse, not in our town. And we don't want this in our town. And I thank you for your support. And let's keep this in mind because we don't want to commit a crime, do we? Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thanks. Okay, moving right along then, we have appointments and recognitions. And I have two appointments. I wonder if people would stand when your name is called. Dustin Cawley to the Historic Preservation Commission. Is Dustin here? Dustin? Thank you. And Leah Klein to the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to ask Melanie Schlito to come forward from Green Top Grocery to give us a bit of an update on what's going on. Good evening, Melanie.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melanie Schelito. Some of you may know me. I'm the board president of Green Top Grocery. And as most of you, all of you know, we were here back in the spring talking about rebates for sales and property taxes, and we really appreciate the council's support. Just to give you a little bit of an update, we are in our second phase of our owner loan campaign right now, so things are literally happening about every hour, but I've got updated numbers the best I can. Right now, we have 1,068 owners of Green Top Grocery, which is a pretty big leap since last year in the last campaign. Our owner loan campaign right now, as of about 4 hours ago, is almost 1.1 million, so we're making good inroads. And we have 7 days left on our regularly scheduled owner loan campaign. So the heat is on, but our volunteers are working tirelessly. Right now, we have 37 owners who made a pledge in Phase 1 and have decided to increase that pledge. So the folks who supported us are supporting us even more now. And we have 35 individuals so far who have made new pledges. So those are new people we've reached or people who have decided to join in. The average pledge size right now is $5,500. Green Top Grocery set a national record in our Phase 1 campaign by raising $900,000, which is more than any co-op startup has done in the time frame that we did it, and we continue to be the top-rated startup in the nation. Another big landmark that we've hit is that about a month ago, we did sign contracts with our general manager. We have hired that person. They are an experienced co-op manager, and they will be here on Thursday meeting with our owners in sort of a grand unveiling to get to meet this individual. It's a big deal. So once we are able to break escrow and officially have him on the payroll, he'll be moving to our community and being the face of this project. Right now, he is officially scheduled to start on May 1 or when we break escrow, whichever comes later. That Meet the GM night for owners is this Thursday, as I mentioned. So we've been in the news recently. We were on GLT last week with an interview kind of giving a status, and today WEEK was out at the site filming, and I believe that segment is airing tonight. So we've been getting some good press. I also want to just quickly point out the gentleman who started off the comment section. Green Top Grocery is using union labor for our project. One of the key missions of this enterprise is to keep money local, support local workers, local farmers, and the individuals who live in our community who need good food. So we welcome all the support as we are trying to support those in our community. Thank you.
Melanie. Any questions of Melanie? Comments? Thank you very much. Thanks for the work that you're
Thank
doing.
you.
And obviously, it's an exciting project. It's the first multi-million-dollar investment, or will be, on Constitution Trail in the city of Bloomington.
It is.
So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Oh my. Thank you.
Moving right along to our consent agenda, are there any items that any member of the City Council would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. I've got 7H.
7H?
Yes, and 7I.
And 7I. Okay? Anything else? Alderman?
7G.
7G. Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7HI by Alderman Lauer and 7G by Alderman Fruin?
I will make that motion, Mayor.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt and second by Alderwoman Howman, I'm guessing, with the light on. Alderman Fruin?
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Mayor, with regard to both the consent and regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in these specific agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at this point, will you go ahead and vote? An aye is in favor of the consent agenda as presented minus the three items that were referenced. We have motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. We move right along. Let's go ahead and start with item 7H. Alderman Lauer, you pulled that?
Yes, sir. Concerns in the neighborhood. This actually is located on the south end of Ward 1 and a bit to the west side. What I think a culmination of the concern is that there may be some aggressive signage. There's nothing in here that limits mobile storage units in the lot, as I understand it as well. And we're just afraid it might be a bit detrimental to the neighborhood. And so that's the reason I'm pulling it. And I'd like to take a closer look and maybe have some further explanation on a few of the points.
Okay. Alderwoman Schmidt, did you want to weigh in on this as well?
Well, I had an additional question. Actually,
sure.
I'm glad you pulled it. We received a memo today also indicating that probably, 5 or 6 years ago, actually Mr. Garth, who spoke to us, had been told absolutely no way could you do this kind of facility along Veterans Parkway. And now that has changed, and I recognize that the people who are staff are all new staff, but I think we need some continuity and some clarity. So thank you for pulling it.
Okay. I wonder if we can ask Tom Dabereiner, our Director of Community Development, to come forward. Good evening, Tom. I wonder if can you weigh in on this and provide some clarifications to some of the questions.
You ask a question,
Um,
maybe I can
Well,
respond to it.
the neighbors are just,
Uh-huh.
I have some housing units that are going to be facing this. As it stands in the last decade and a half or so, we had Tom's Grocery there, which was a parking lot, and the public had access to it. We haven't had a lot of traffic in the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years due to the last tenant that was there. And so this is going to create quite a change when we start to park a lot of trailers, trucks, and it doesn't appear that there are very many limitations in terms of where those will be parked, how it will look, what the building appearance will be, what signage will be allowed on or around the building and on the property, etc.
We looked at the signage question. It meets our code, our signage code. The parking has been defined by striped spaces. I recall a prior concern that was mentioned when you brought this up regarding no controls over adding a building, and in fact, that is not allowed without gaining additional permission. And there are requirements that would be associated with
Okay.
structures.
Will they be allowed to bring in, say, mobile shipping containers and stack those, et cetera? I mean,
Thing is,
those are allowed in a
everything
number of
is-
other areas of the town.
Everything is inside on this building,
So everything is going to be inside.
other than the
Do
trucks.
we have any guarantee that that's going to be the case?
Well, we have code enforcement to help guarantee it.
Okay. So you have that in writing, and we have in writing exactly what their signage is going to be. The reason I'm bringing this up, Tom, I don't mean
Have
to
their-
grill you here, but there have been a number of other communities, and it's been brought to my attention here in the last couple of days, that have actually pushed this company completely out of town. I don't want to do that. I think it's a fair use of the property as long as it's kept sightly. And it's, I've got neighbors that are actually living right across the street. And so we've got to be able to be malleable and live within.
Sure. They meet our signage requirements. We are aware of what they are trying to do. We've looked at it. We've discussed it with them. Our signage requirements aren't that strict, and that's certainly something that if the council so directs, we can start to evaluate. Although there are more strict federal rules now that would prohibit us from getting too much into the meat of signage. To a certain extent, asking for color control and things like that are, you can imagine Wendy's asking McDonald's to lose the golden arches. What's being asked for in many cases is akin to something like that. There were other things that were mentioned that just aren't in our code, and other requirements that are really very much of a stretch in terms of interpreting our code. This proposed reuse of this building and this property meets our code. That's why there wasn't a lot of conditions. It is enclosed within the building other than the trucks that they rent outside, so it is different than some other storage type facilities. Can trucks be used as signage? Sure, it's all over the city.
Right. And it's also, I'm aware that they also service with an LP tank, and at their current facility, I don't think that that's met code in some time. It's very close to the street. Have we defined exactly what they're going to be doing? Are they going to have LP?
Right, that is not part of their proposal, and we
Okay.
did have a specific discussion on that.
Okay, all right.
Alderwoman
Thank you.
Schmidt.
And also, Tom, I wanted to follow up on the email memo that we all received today from Mr. Garth, where he indicates that about 5 or 6 years ago he began looking at opportunities for similar kinds of projects and was I'm quoting from the memo here. We discussed our interests with city staff and officials. We were told there was, quote, absolutely no willingness to allow a special use for conversion of buildings on Veterans Parkway because the mini storage unit was inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. We were told that any application for a rezoning or special use permit would be wasted time and energy for us and staff. And I know this was not under your watch.
Thank you.
And so, right, and I know that, you don't have the history that would defend it, but it does feel like we've shifted the playing field here, and I'm very concerned about that.
Sure. I spoke with Mr. Garth the other day. This wasn't the precise location he was looking at. It was a different location. I don't, as he said, I wasn't here. I don't know all of what was said. Perhaps, very often staff will say something and it will get interpreted in another way. It's just so hard. There's myriad possibilities regarding that communication at that time. I do know, what I can tell you is this, for this site, it is an allowed special use within a B1 zoning district. So it has to go through the process. It went through the process. Alderman Bragas can speak to the, sorry, I just butchered your name, and I'm sensitive to that, Alderman Bragas. Yes, I am. Can speak to the ZBA and how carefully they consider these things that come before them. And they looked at this and felt that it met all the requirements. And we have other buildings, for example, other storage buildings that have enclosed storage, and so they don't have the fence around the perimeter of the property as our code requires. So that was really a relatively easy variance that could be granted.
And does this fit into our comprehensive plan, then, our long
Sure,
range?
it's a highway-related use. It certainly makes sense.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Okay. Alderman Fruin.
Thank you. I think my questions are pretty much in the same vein that, at least on my radar, I wasn't even aware of the 903 Morrissey until the last week or two. I don't know if any of us knew much about all the work that's been done there the last few years. And we did get an email this afternoon from Mr. Garth that I think most of us had a chance to look at. And then right before the meeting tonight, here we've got another 4-page letter that I've not read. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read it, but I don't know what's in here. I guess I feel like it's the 11th hour, and I think the issue really is fairness to both parties, equitable treatment. I don't know if Mr. Garth has names or people that he's spoken with. I don't know if that's referenced in here. We're not trying to put a blame game here about who spoke to who, but I think we're looking for a level field, Tom, and do we have a level playing field? Have we treated Mr. Garth fairly?
Well, he's not come to me with a proposal, so certainly if he had come to the same site with his proposal, we would have given it the same consideration that we gave this particular vendor. That's how I do business.
I guess I'm kind of stuck, Mayor. Right now, it's the 11th hour. Some of this is new to us.
Sure.
We've
Well,
got a
essentially,
4-page.
the time for action, I mean, maybe this wasn't as publicized as it should have been, or it's hard to say, but the time for action was when the ZBA took public comment and took the public hearing, and that was the evidence gathering phase. Right? Alderwoman Burgess.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on that, just so people understand the process. So that when this went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, there was a public hearing, is that correct? And people were allowed to speak in favor of or against this particular proposal.
Correct.
And they would have known about that particular hearing because there is public notice provided. You actually send out letters to people within a certain circumference?
Any property touching 500 feet from the perimeter of this property.
Okay, and you also put up a sign on the site, is that correct?
Sign on the site, newspaper ad as well, which is the legal ad in the newspaper is the only thing required by state law. The rest is extra.
Okay, and what we're doing tonight is not another public hearing that's already been done. We're allowed to rely on that and that information. which of course there was very little of, because I think if I remember correctly, I can't find it right now, no one spoke opposed to or in favor of this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Lau.
Just real quick, what harm would it be if we just tabled this for a couple of weeks and took a closer look at this? Because so much of this information has come to us in the last few days.
Well, I think procedurally, I mean, obviously the council can do what it wants to do, but procedurally, Mr. Garza was out to his facility. It's very, very impressive what he's done at 903 Morrissey. Just very, very impressive. But I think it does set the wrong message that we have a process at the ZBA, and if we get emails at the last moment or communication at the last moment, we may table all that and make them start from scratch. I mean, I think that's the trade-off of it. But, I mean, at this point, I think we'll go to Alderwoman Howman, and I think perhaps take a vote. Thank you.
I was at the zoning board meeting, and there were some changes that the board asked for that the owner had agreed to. So they were looking at visual and some of the other
Some additional
aspects.
landscaping as well, and yes.
Okay. All right. At this point, thank you very much. And I vote, excuse me, I don't have a motion on the floor. Either a motion to recommit or to send it back to the ZBA, or a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Howman. Okay. And I vote then is to approve as presented, a nay vote. If the nays have it, then we would entertain potentially another motion to send it back. Okay. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. And we move right along. Alderman Lauer, you also pulled item 7I, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah.
Just a little bit further explanation in terms of many of these things I understand and I support, but I'm not sure I'm clear on this utility debts collected through property taxes special assessment. You have somebody that can explain that a little further to us?
Mr. Hales, do you have any information, or maybe Mr. Juergens?
I can't necessarily get into great detail, other than to indicate that the IML, working through a number of bodies within the organization, has put together this particular legislative lobbying priorities. Apparently, many of the members have kind of raised this issue, brought this through their legislative body, and so it has got on this particular legislative agenda. The reason we bring the entire legislative agenda to the council is because on March 14th, we'll be meeting with our local state legislators, and as we discuss various topics, including these agenda items, sometimes we've been asked the question, well, has the council taken a policy stand in support or non-support of either all or part of the agenda? So once again, I can't get necessarily into detailed explanation of this per se, but that's the reason we bring the entire legislative agenda. But I'd be happy to kind of research it and get back to you on that particular item.
I'm quite concerned, as I have constituents that are as well, about personal citizen property rights and due diligence and equal rights under the law. It seems that this may be speeding up the process a little bit faster than normal, and I'm not sure that we have the right to stand in the way of the way that law is distributed. I have concerns with that, as I do with our municipal court that we are currently using, and so that's my concern. Thanks.
Okay. Is there a motion to either approve or not approve?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
The move by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Again, an aye vote would be in favor of this as presented, and nay vote would be opposed. Okay, the motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to, I believe, Alderman Fruin. You pulled item 7G, the detention basin feasibility study.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Nathan Bridges, who spoke earlier about this. I think, well, let me start out with a motion that we approve it as presented.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Return it back to you then.
My only purpose in taking 1 minute to pull this is, I know Scott had sent us a note a week ago before he left town and said he was very supportive of this, and it looks like maybe Karen has been involved, and I don't know who else has been involved in this, but somehow it got to the consent agenda, and it looks like a relatively minimal commitment tonight of a staff person's time for a week to look at some of these varied issues. I guess this has a lot of threads to a lot of the emails we've been sharing or comments we've been sharing with each other with regard to adding things to our plate. And this is one more thing we're adding to the plate. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I don't have an opinion. But it's one more thing we're adding to the plate, and we have a lot of differences of opinion on the council with regard to our parks and recreation programs. And we have people that feel like we ought to look at our golf courses, our BCPA, our Coliseum, et cetera. So this, in some regards, looks like it's kind of going the other direction. They're wanting to look at everything we provide today, and yet now we're adding something more as a possibility. So I'm not opposed to this. I'm just not aware of it. I'm not aware of this bike group. Seems like it might be a very welcome form of recreation, but I think it gives us an example, it gives us an opportunity at a later date to kind of put these things together in our Parks and Rec umbrella and decide where are we spending our time, because we just keep adding to the plate and adding to the plate, and we need to, as the manager has told us over a period of time, prioritize our budgeting needs. So I'm very supportive of this. I plan to vote yes, and I just want to bring those comments to light.
Thank you. Alderwoman Schmidt.
Just a little bit of context. This came out, gosh, at least 2 years ago. This was prior to Steve Rasmussen, when Sue McLaughlin was here, and we had a good conversation with this particular group, and looked like a good thing to go after. I think Mr. Rasmussen is actually speaking directly to what you're talking about and is trying to get some structure to what we're doing to begin to, actually get some of these things on our agenda so we do understand and hopefully, and that we know what we're doing, and then hopefully we will have better opportunity to begin to prioritize so it's not one alderman coming from this direction and another one from another. So that was my understanding. Is that your understanding, Mr. Hales?
Yes, in fact, that was one of the objectives putting it on tonight, to make sure the entire council was aware of this potential project. It just so happens that there is some technical issues on property lines, proximity to the railroad tracks, in between that and the water, so there is some additional research, spending the money that is going to be necessary to before determining whether it's not feasible. I would add too that if it is determined to be feasible and a plan's brought back to the council, we'll also ask that you amend the parks master plan so that this particular property does get added as an additional piece of real estate that would become another asset to the Parks and Recreation inventory, which will increase our overall service level. So it has a lot of appeal, but right now, again, it was those two objectives, making sure the entire council felt good at moving forward, and that we would have to spend some money before determining, with the assistance of COBRA, if it was feasible to do that. So.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Okay, there is a motion and a second on the floor. An aye is in favor of the motion as presented. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. We move right along to our regular agenda, and we have going to be ultimately here having a public hearing for approval and authorization to submit the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program. And we're going to go, I think at this point, Mr. Juergens, I should declare the public hearing in order, or do I do it after Jennifer's presentation? Okay. The public hearing is, for the CDBG money is in order, and Jennifer, I'm going to turn it over to you for a brief presentation, and then if anyone wants to speak to this, you can come forward and have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing me to speak this evening and provide an overview of what our plans are for the Community Development Block Grant for this coming year. I'm going to just take a few minutes to talk about a couple of changes that we are or that we've either gone through or we're proposing for the upcoming year for a couple things as well. And we'll try to make things as clear as possible in the effort of staying transparent. We had quite a few changes come through at the end of last week that I wasn't able to get on your exhibit. So I'm going to outline it here, and hopefully it'll be clear for everybody, and I apologize for that. Oops. Okay. My name is Jennifer Toney, for those of you that I maybe haven't had an opportunity to meet. I'm the Grants Coordinator for Community Development Department. I've been with that department for about 16 months, and my job is to coordinate several grants that we have, and one of those is the Community Development Block Grant, which is a program of the U.S. Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, department. So this year that I'm proposing is actually our Program Year 42 action plan, and it's for the second year of our consolidated plan. HUD requires us to provide a master plan every 5 years, and then we supplement it each year with an action plan, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. In addition to the public hearing that we're having tonight, it's been open for public review and comment since January 24th, and citizens are allowed to make comments through close of business on the 29th. So even though we have the hearing tonight, we'll continue to accept comments for another week. The full copies of the action plan, if anybody's interested in looking at it, can be obtained through our department at Community Development in the Government Center, at the Bloomington Public Library, in the City Clerk's office, and then there's an electronic copy on our website. Ways that we make the notice, or help the public become aware that the notice is out there, and trying to get more public input. We are required to put a notice in the paper, and that went in on January 24th. But we've also published in the Pathogram 3 times, and that goes out to about 1,000 service providers in the community. We have done direct mailing and emails to churches, program partners, neighborhood associations, and social service providers. And then there's a public notice posted at City Hall, the Government Center, and then throughout the Bloomington Housing Authority as well. One of the changes that we made this year to the program, and it kind of affected how we chose our programs this year, we didn't really have a formal application process for non-housing projects in the past. It was kind of, if somebody wanted some money, they'd contact us, and we'd figure out if it met the agenda or met the guidelines, and they came in throughout the year. And for me, it just wasn't as clear-cut and defined as I needed it to be. So what we looked at doing this year was we set up a formal application process where there was a defined application that anyone that wanted to seek CDBG funding needed to fill out. Not a homeowner, but anybody looking to fund public services or basically a public facility or a housing project. And so we accepted those applications for a set period of time, and we did publicize that, and we got actually a lot more applications this year than we've gotten requests for in the past, so we felt that was successful. We reviewed the applications to make sure they were compliant with HUD regulations, all the other federal regulations, to make sure they were going to meet a national objective for HUD, that they were eligible activities, all those types of things, and came up with some funding decisions in October. From there, we sent notification letters out in January letting people know they either were potentially funded or they wouldn't be funded this year, and encouraging them to apply again next year. For those that were potentially funded, we let them know that there was further processes. One, we did not have our allocations from HUD at that time, so we didn't know how much money we were going to have. 2, we needed to make sure we were going to be able to gain council approval. And then 3, the final stage is that it has to go to HUD for approval. So I think it worked really well. We're going to continue with it, with making just a few adjustments for next year, and then continue to tweak it as we go. But I think that it's really doing a nice job of letting people know that the funding is there. The other thing that we're changing, and this is for the coming year, is the way that we do our housing rehabilitation application process. And we are just in the very beginning process of changing this, so it's definitely open for comments. But when I started 16 months ago, we were accepting applications on a first-come, first-served basis. And the situation that we were in was we had 30-plus applications on the waiting list, and sometimes people were waiting for 2 years or more before we could get to them to give them assistance. by going first come, first serve, it meant that you might have somebody that has a major hole in their roof at the bottom of the list, and really they need immediate assistance, and they're waiting 20 people behind where we were. And HUD was fine with the way that we did it, but we feel that there's a better way to do it. So what we want to do this next year is have an application process similar to what we did with the other applications. Have it open for 60 days. Advertise that it's available, relying heavily on WBRP and some of our other partners to make sure that families that need this assistance are going to get the information. And then come up with a criteria for ranking the applications rather than on a first come, first serve, but based on need. And so we would use that ranking system and then look at the applications by rank and determine how much money we actually have to fund, how many programs we can do for that year. Notify those families that they will receive funding. And then if we have extra funding at the end, then we would continue down the list. For those that aren't eligible to get funding for that year, when they reapply, we'll set up some sort of a system where they can get extra points or something for having applied and not gotten assistance if they really need it. They just weren't able to get it the first year. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We have a meeting. Our first meeting on that is this week. The application process has been closed since last June. We closed it also because we were having some staffing changes and we weren't sure how long we were going to be without a rehab specialist. The stars have aligned for us. We hired a fantastic rehab specialist that pretty much hit the ground running, so we didn't have those months that we had built in for training. The good weather has allowed us to get more projects done this winter than we had anticipated. So when we open it back up again, rather than looking at a list of about 30, we're going to be down to about 10. Or fewer on the list. Real quick, the other thing that actually worked out really well for us was we have a partnership with Mid-Central Community Action, and they received a grant to do roofs in West Bloomington, and they used our list. So we were able to transfer 7 of our people off of our list onto their list so that they could get assistance sooner than what we were able to provide them.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry, you had...
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were finished, Jim.
Yeah, this is the proposed budget that is in the action plan that's out for public comment right now, okay? You'll notice all the funds are estimated, and that's because when we have to put this out in order to get it submitted in time, we do not know what our funding levels are going to be. Our allocations just came out late last week. So we base our allocations off of our current year's funding. We did have a slight cut for next year, so you'll see that in a little bit. We estimate our program income to be about $30,000, and that money comes in from loan repayments. And then where normally we have about $150,000 in carry forward funding, we think we're only going to have about $25,000 for this next year because we did some larger scale infrastructure projects this year that used a lot of that carry forward money. So you'll see at the bottom here we balance out for what we're planning on bringing in and what we're planning on spending. Okay. Moving through this, if you look at this, we're looking at, these are our projects in the second row here that we're planning on funding. The first column is the objective that it's going to meet. The second one is the name of the project. Third column is the money that's currently in the action plan. And then we're going to have to make some changes to that before we submit it to HUD because we had a public facilities project that we had funded $80,000 for that we had to reallocate funding for, and I'll explain that in a minute. So you'll see that the changes that we're going to make, there was a property on Stillwell that the Bloomington Housing Authority owns that they were going to rehab and move their administrative offices there. We found out late last week that they're not going to be able to do that, and there's a potential change in use of how they're going to use the facility. Since we weren't sure that that would meet a national objective, we needed to reallocate those funds so that we didn't get in a situation where we would have to pay the funding back. So what we're looking at is one of our public services was a playground for early childhood education at Heartland Head Start. They had requested $20,000 initially, and we had initially agreed to give them $10,000. When I started doing the environmental reviews, I realized that they really aren't a public service activity. It should be a public facilities activity. So I'm proposing that we move them to that category and then add the additional $10,000 that they needed since we are reallocating funding. The other public facility that we're going to propose that we add in is a small project with Connect Transit. They had asked for quite a bit of money initially to do some shelters, and we didn't feel we had the money to help them this year. But since we were reallocating funding, they had a partnership that they were working on with West Bloomington Revitalization Project to take 5 of the locations in that area and just start with the pads, making them handicap accessible, and then WBRP will make nice wooden benches to go on those pads so that at least people have some place to sit. And we're planning on working on shelters down the road. So those are about $2,000 a piece, so we were estimating that we would need $10,000 to fund those. The Housing Rehabilitation Loan and Grants Program, we would take $35,000 of that $80,000 and increase that project. And then you'll notice I say minus the $89.54. That's what we were cut this year. So we will take that cut out of that project. And then adding $25,000 to the demolition program. So in the end, this is what we end up with that we will ask both you and HUD to approve for us for the budget that we will submit for our action plan for this year. So thank you for your time. And if anybody on council or
Questions
anyone else has
before
questions.
we open it up for public input? No, thank you very much, Jennifer. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for hard work. And we're going to go ahead and move to public. Are there anyone in the audience who'd like to come forward and speak on the CDBG program? Yes. Okay. And again, you can have up to 3 minutes if you could sign in and let us know who you are.
Good evening, Mike O'Donnell. I live at 912 West Oakland Avenue in Bloomington, and I'm president of the West Bloomington Revitalization Project. We wanted to come here tonight in support of the action plan. We wanted to say thank you to the City Council and to staff for their support for our efforts to help our local homeowners on the west side to maintain their home in good repair through our tool library and through our home facade repair program. And as Jennifer indicated, we're seeing synergy as a result of the collaborations with Mid-Central Community Action, with Habitat for Humanity, working with the city, with our other partners, including Illinois Wesleyan University, University of Illinois Law School, and several other professionals who have come together. And truly, our board and our West Bloomington Housing Collaborative are action-oriented. So an action plan is really more than just paper. We are volunteering and and engaging local residents in the repairs of their homes. This past year, we completed the repairs of 10 homes. We have over 700 residents enrolled in our lending tool library. We have 800 tools in our inventory, and we've made over 3,000 tool loans since our inception in 2013. So those are just a few examples of the collaboration that we've been engaged in. We'll also be sponsoring several community events to more than just bricks and mortar, to really promote a sense of unity and improve the quality of life among the residents in West Bloomington. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks. Okay. Yes, come forward. And again, if you'll sign in when you're finished then.
Just over here.
I think he's got
Okay.
that.
My name is Kathy Sprague, and I'm here representing Heartland Head Start. I just would wish to thank you all for your support, and we do have a marvelous program that helps our young children in our community, so thank you very much for your support with this.
Thank you. Good. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Oh, excuse me. Oh, someone else is... Oh, excuse me, sir. Please come forward. And your name, sir?
Robert Vasquez, 819 West Jefferson. I'm also here to thank you for West Bloomington Revitalization. You guys have been supporting us for now 2 years going, a little bit longer than that. Also, on behalf of Connect Transit, we are currently working on some benches, as it was mentioned earlier. So these pads would be great. Currently, a lot of the ridership is in West Bloomington. These benches will primarily be on the Market Street corridor. So thank you very much for allowing money for Connect Transit as well, please.
Okay, thank you. And again, would you sign in there, please, sir? Thank you. Anyone else before I close this? Okay, the going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. All right, the public hearing is closed. And at this point, we're going to move to the action plan, but I am going to turn to Alderwoman Schmidt.
I would like to recuse myself as a member of the WBRP board.
Okay.
So.
We will come get you when we're finished. Thank you. Okay. At this point, is there a motion to approve the annual action plan?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Burgess. Any further discussion? I didn't mispronounce your name, did I? Okay. I thought I had. At this point, then, a vote in favor is in favor of this as presented. Okay. There are 7. Motion carries 7-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And I wonder if someone could retrieve. She's here already. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next, we move to approving an intergovernmental revenue sharing agreement between the County of McLean, the City of Bloomington, and the Town of Normal. We have first a presentation by the City Manager and Mr. Juergens, our Corporate Counsel.
Mayor and Council, if I just could make one brief comment. I think tonight's discussion is solely because of your action in adopting a 1% home rule sales tax increase, which provided us with the revenue and the ability to assist McLean County and our entire community with the great needs associated with mental health services. I think this is very much an example of the strong partnership and the collaboration we have, both with the town of Normal, who's also participating, and the McLean County government as well. I was able to participate with Jeff Juergens and others in the discussion and decision-making on this agreement, and I'd like to turn to him to kind of go over the highlights of the terms of this revenue sharing agreement. Mr. Juergens.
Thank you, City Manager and Council. Tonight, we have before you the intergovernmental agreement that was referenced in the ordinance that you passed on September 21 of last year. As the City Manager said, part of that ordinance required that we would dedicate basically 0.25% of that 1% increase to the county for many mental health needs. And specifically, that ordinance said that that would be done in accordance with an intergovernmental agreement that would be agreed to between the parties. And so tonight we're bringing forward that intergovernmental agreement. This agreement is for 20 years. It contains various provisions on accounting that's to be done as part of the funds are transferred and the use of those funds. It creates a special counsel, essentially, that the city will be allowed to appoint, and this council will be involved in helping the county, advising the county in where this money is going to be spent. The agreement very clearly sets forth what the money can be used to fund by the county, and also addresses situations where state law may prohibit us from collecting the tax, and or in the future a city council would potentially lower its collection of sales tax. We know you've got a busy agenda tonight, so we don't want to spend a lot of time going into the details. They're all provided there. I do want to point out that we have the County Board Chairman, John McIntyre, here, the County Administrator, Bill Wasson, and other county officials. If there are any questions, they are more than happy to help answer them. But we wanted to present this agreement to you for your consideration. The county did approve it, has approved it. Normal will consider this at its next meeting.
Okay. Questions, comments, or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this as presented to us.
Moved for approval by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Painter. Any further discussion? Okay. Again, an aye is in favor of the intergovernmental agreement. I'm sorry. Alderman Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's just a quick question. So let's assume that in any given year, not all the money is spent, which I'm not sure would happen, but let's assume. So what happens with that?
Are you saying if the county doesn't spend the money that it receives?
Right. So does the money come back to us, or do they keep it?
No, the agreement doesn't contemplate that the money's going to come back. I think it's going to go into a designated special fund. So they may do some advanced planning or something like that. I think where the city would have a voice in that would be on this council that's going to be created for the use of the funds. Mm-hmm. And advising the county on the budget, but there's no provision here that would provide for the money to be returned to the city.
Okay. And let's also assume that maybe within the next 10 years or so, the efforts are so effective that, we don't have any, or at least it's, less mental health issues as we do now, what happens then?
Well, we could always, go back and renegotiate if all the parties agree to it, and that's something that, the parties could monitor and watch. But as is, assuming that those needs are out there and that those bonds are out there, this money is going to be used to pay for those items.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Alderwoman Hellman.
Do we know who our representative will be for the Behavioral Health Coordinating
I
Council?
think so. What's the process, Mr. Jurgen?
Yeah, we'll have to come forward with an appointment on that in the future.
That's somebody from the public at
Yeah,
large?
it can be whoever the city desires to appoint to that position. So you could appoint an alderman, you could appoint somebody from the public, however you wanted to handle that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, again, an aye vote is in favor of the motion as presented. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay? And we move right along to Mr. Austin Grammer. We have, just to clarify everyone, this is item 8C, consideration of adopting 3 ordinances to establish the proposed Empire Street Corridor redevelopment project at TIF District. And as Mr. Jurgens and Mr. Hales have said, this can be handled by a singular motion to adopt the 3, but before I entertain a motion, I will turn it over to Austin Grammer.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. This has been a multiple-month process to get to this stage. We've had a required public hearing a few weeks ago. We've had a joint border review meeting where the various affected taxing districts met and reviewed the 3 ordinances that are before you tonight. They all unanimously approved those ordinances. This required statutory delays and that bring us to this point where you are able to now consider the 3 ordinances that would implement this program. Those delays have now passed, and it is now before you tonight. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have regarding the proposed Empire Street Corridor redevelopment project area or TIF district. Alderman Burgess.
I'm wondering if first we want to get a motion on the floor, or do we have questions before that?
I do have a question. I'm happy to make a motion too, whichever order you prefer it.
Why don't we go ahead and take a motion?
Okay, I'll go ahead and move that we adopt it as presented.
Is there a second? I'll second. Thank you.
And my question is that we've talked about this before, and I know it's been contemplated, how we can reduce the potential impact on our school districts. I was wondering if you could just briefly touch on that again, since that's a concern that continues to be part of this process.
Sure. Well, as the TIF district is drawn, District 87 high school and junior high campus has been included in it. So that sets District 87 up to benefit substantially should there be surplus funds available in the TIF account that is controlled by the city council. The city council can potentially partner with District 87 to fund eligible redevelopment project expenses, such things as new windows, new roofing, new HVAC, remodeling of auditoriums, remodeling of classrooms, new flooring, pretty much anything that a private developer would do to a commercial building, the city council could pledge funds as available in the TIF account to District 87 to offset those costs. So by the inclusion of District 87 property in the TIF district provides a great deal of latitude and flexibility for this city council and future city councils to partner with District 87 over the potential 23-year life of the TIF district.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, just to add on to what Austin said, another opportunity the council has is to declare surplus funds each year. As an example, it could be within 10 years or less. The total obligation incentive to Colonial Plaza is paid, and if there's no other projects, the council can declare surpluses, sending on those increment dollars out to all the taxing entities, not just school districts. And then the second, but I think most important too, is that we have pledged, Austin and I, to sit down with the school superintendent and their staff to have further discussion, because as they point out, 23 years is a long time. And we have been working the last few years, especially in the downtown, on some very site-specific projects, shorter terms for tax abatements, And I think now is a great opportunity and a good time to talk about whether or not we should collectively and as city staff individually be recommending maybe full 23-year terms going forward. So that dialogue will begin in the very near future, and we'll bring back to you the results of that discussion and communication with our school partners.
And Alderman Lauer.
Yeah, I have several questions, and I grasp the idea of targeting funding to upgrade these water mains, 6-inch to 8-inch, et cetera. So I kind of grasp that, but I have a lot of concerns with what we're doing with the neighborhood. I mean, this could go either way. I'm very concerned about the viability and continued viability of the Eastland Mall area and neighbors south and north of this proposed TIF, and the viability of their ability to compete. It's onerous at this point in time. You know, quite frankly, most of these TIFs don't really succeed until the economy is really burgeoning and we've got a lot of money to spend. And quite frankly, I don't see that happening in the short term here. Obviously, we've got a 23-year term, and nobody can look into the future and tell what's going to happen. But I can't help but think that there's some negative ramifications that could play out here in the short term, and I'm very concerned about that. We've got some rather expensive investment in real estate in the surrounding area just south of that as well with Country Club Place. And depending on what happens and what develops across the street there, that could, obviously the intent here is to be a positive, but it could very well end up being a negative. And boy, there's just a lot of cards that could fall here. So I'm very concerned.
Okay. Sure.
If I could, it's always true. Things could go positive, they could go negative, but I think the facts are right now we do have a national shopping center owner and developer that wants to make an investment in Colonial Plaza, which I think Austin's been about at 80% vacancy. So it has been, I think some could say, a real struggling area and could very much have negative consequences. So they are ready, they have the financing, they have the wherewithal, they've already executed this lease agreement with Dick's Sporting Goods. So we certainly are taking advantage of an opportunity where the property owner's coming to us, not us going to them, and saying that they're ready to make this investment, $10 million plus, and well, we collaborate with them. It remains to be seen what will happen over on Tawanda Barnes, but I think if the Postal Service moves someday, what's going to continue to happen to that shopping center, and will it sit vacant? So you bring up some good points, and I think the one thing we're going to be watching for is, was it prudent to have the district as large as it is? I think it was, it certainly has been downsized from what we started with, but I think it's very appropriate at this point in time to move this along. But keep in mind, just because this TIF district is adopted doesn't mean that we wouldn't also work with Eastland Mall. We have had discussions with representatives of Eastland Mall, and we've expressed to them just as well that we're ready to partner and to help them, especially if they are looking to do some reinvestment in their property just as the Colonial Plaza property owners. So we're very fortunate that there is that willingness out there, but on the other hand, we've got to keep in mind, because as new development takes place, some of the older developments sometimes will continue to struggle until they upgrade and refresh their property, which is the norm. So, but yeah, good points.
And then just one of the critical things, as we've talked about before, is that I know certainly City Manager Hales, when he goes to city manager conferences, hears the same kinds of things when I go to the mayor's conferences. You can't let vacant strip malls go under or stay vacant, because it's not just that you lose the jobs, not just that you lose the investment or the property taxes, it's that they become magnets for gang activity and other kinds of problems and crime. And so for a lot of reasons, this is especially Colonial Plaza with Kmart leaving, Circuit City leaving, to say it's underperforming is putting it charitably. But anything else? Okay, at this point then, we do have a motion and a second. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for the record, the motion is to approve all three ordinances that are on the agenda.
Okay, all right. And nays in opposition. Okay. All right. I don't have Scott, my millennial, to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Oh, it's over there. I'm sorry. Okay. The motion carries 7-1. There's one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. And we move on to another economic development item, and that, of course, is Kroger. There's consideration of an ordinance approving an economic incentive agreement to support the retention and expansion of the Kroger Company in the city of Bloomington. And then before I entertain a motion, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our city manager, Austin Grammer. Again.
Mayor and council, we're very pleased to bring to you tonight a economic incentive agreement that has been drafted and negotiated with the nation's #1 grocery store company, the Kroger Company. And as indicated in this backup report, they're looking to make a major investment in the city of Bloomington on some vacant grounds on South College Lane. I think we're very fortunate that the Kroger Company has ultimately decided that many of their stores are aging, that they're in need of major renovation, and in order for them to be a very strong competitor in this marketplace. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Austin for just a few highlights of this economic incentive agreement. Austin.
Scott, could you turn the projector back on there? Thank you. Well, again, as Mayor and the City Manager have outlined before you tonight, is a consideration of an ordinance approving a negotiated economic incentive agreement to support the retention and expansion of the Kroger Company in the City of Bloomington. As you may or may not have known, the Kroger Company is the third largest retailer in the world behind Walmart and Costco, and is the largest full-service grocery retailer in the United States. In its over 90-year history in Bloomington Normal, Kroger has operated at 11 different locations in Bloomington Normal and currently operates 3 stores in our market. Based on research done by the McLean County History Museum, Kroger is the longest continuously operating grocery retailer in Bloomington Normal. Thanks to the McLean County History Museum and staff, was able to find some historic photos, including this Kroger that was located in downtown Bloomington on the site of what is now the Abraham Lincoln parking garage. As you can see, over the years, Kroger has continually invested in its stores and enlarged them or relocated them from time to time over the years. Today, Kroger employs over 300 area residents and has a 3-store combined payroll of over $5.2 million. These are good jobs with a solid company that offers good benefits, and these jobs have provided rewarding and fulfilling careers for many of our local residents. Today, Kroger proposes to relocate its existing store on College Avenue through the construction of a 128,000 square foot Kroger Marketplace store and fuel center. The Kroger Marketplace is a proven retail concept that has been highly successful for Kroger in other markets and could be the first Kroger Marketplace in Illinois. The proposed store will be located at the southwest corner of College Avenue and Hershey Road as indicated on this map. Here are some renderings of the proposed store. This is a brand new concept, a new look for Kroger, and includes a tasteful combination of brick, stained fiber cement, steel, and concrete masonry. In addition to a complete offering of grocery items found at a typical Kroger, the proposed Kroger Marketplace store will feature a drive-up pharmacy, a little clinic staffed by a nurse practitioner, a Murray's Cheese shop, a Starbucks, and an assortment of general merchandise, including fashionable clothing, household items, and baby supplies. As you can see in this preliminary site plan, space is allocated on the west side of the store for Kroger's new Click and Collect online ordering service, wherein customers can order groceries online and then drive to the store and have their groceries loaded into their car, all without the need to enter the store. Kroger's Click and Collect online ordering system is a hugely popular new development, especially with today's busy families, and is just one example of Kroger's commitment to stay ahead of the retail curve and meet the demands of its customers. The preliminary site plan also indicates the location for 2 proposed Connect Transit bus shelters, one near the traffic signal on College Avenue and the other at Hershey Road near the Pharmacy Drive-Up area. Kroger is also planning to install sidewalks throughout the development to ensure safe and easy walkability for bus riders and neighborhood residents who visit the store on foot. City staff brought Connect Transit into contact with Kroger early on in the planning process so that bus shelters could be sited in safe and appropriate locations prior to the finalization of the site plan, ensuring that sustainable transportation is not an afterthought. Additionally, Kroger is proposing a full landscaping package for the store to help the store become an asset to the neighborhood. Kroger has requested assistance to offset the extraordinary costs related to developing on this site. Those costs include approximately 3 acres of additional property that Kroger is needing to purchase on this site that they would not normally, and that is to help align the store with the traffic signal on College Avenue. There will also be an eastbound deceleration lane or right turn lane that is added to College Avenue to allow safe access to the site. There's also the need to modify the existing signalized intersection, the traffic signal there on College Avenue that we discussed. And then there's also a small wetland on the site that will need to be mitigated before construction can commence. The proposed incentive, as outlined in your packet, is capped at 10 years or the payment of $2.57 million, whichever comes first. The source of this incentive will be 1/3 of the 1% sales tax that is generated on the subject property. This incentive is in compliance with the city's economic development incentive policy and is supported by the recently adopted comprehensive plan, which supports the offer of incentives for development on Tier 1 infill development sites in the city, which this entire site is. Based on the increase in jobs and the limited level of assistance needed to make this project feasible, staff is in support of the proposed development and incentive agreement. We have Brianna Cotton, a real estate specialist from the Kroger Company out of their Indianapolis office here with us tonight. She and also I myself would be happy to answer any questions that you have about the proposed development or about the incentive agreement.
Thank you. Questions? Alderman Lau.
I'm very concerned with their neighborhood, the store along East Oakland Avenue, and what the plan is there. I'm supporting that neighborhood, obviously. That's my area. And I'm concerned that, they may focus their attention here and other areas and let that site go. And I'm afraid that would detract from my neighborhood.
It's my understanding that the store on Oakland Avenue is a leased facility, so that limits Kroger's control to do significant renovations to the exterior of the building. I do understand that they've made a considerable investment within the last few years on a remodel of the interior, the site that they do control, but as a leased facility, their ability to really make a significant change on the outside is
And so are you telling me that they probably will pull out of that facility at some point?
I see no indication that they would pull out of that facility. I think that they, are very doing good business there and would continue to do so. This site here on College Avenue, they would actually own and have full control of, and I would assume that they would stay here for many, many years.
I understand all that. I am still, just like I was with the other groceries that we talked about, we're only going to eat so much, buy so much produce, et cetera, as a community until we start to really aggressively start to grow again. I'm not sure that we're doing anything but moving change from one pocket to the other here. Just my observation. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Fruin and Fruin, Howman, Schmidt, Burgess, and Sage.
Everybody.
Just a quick comment, and I'll reserve my time if I can, Mayor, but just as a point of reference, 1 block west of Kroger is Jewel-Osco on Oakland Avenue, so a block away. Brand new facility that removed from the north side of Oakland Avenue. I'm sorry, north side of Oakland, yeah. No, north side. You're talking about Oakland Avenue.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Got it.
so
just a block
But
away.
I'd want to avoid having storefronts that are sitting vacant as well. And
For the record.
having to TIF something again.
My only comment right now. Thanks.
Alderwoman Hellman?
I just had one question, and this refers back to Richard from the Buildings and Trades Union before, saying that Kroger had not used union labor, and in their application, or incentive application, it said, will materials and services necessary to the completion of the project be purchased and/or acquired by local Bloomington normal area businesses? And they checked yes. If yes, what percentage? The exact percentage of locally sourced materials and services for this project is unknown at this time. So I'm just wondering how that impacts our local labor force.
Well, I think it can be difficult at any time as a developer to know with certainty the availability of a local experienced laborers and skilled tradesmen that may already be committed to other development projects. Perhaps some of our local laborers may be traveling to other communities doing development projects and therefore might not be able to work on a job here. I would also say from my past experience in retail, I know that doing a remodeling project in a 24/7 operating retail facility can be quite challenging, and so sometimes a national retailer may choose to hire one company or in one region to cover all of their stores in a given region, and those...
This is not a remodel, this is a...
Yeah, right.
Right, but...
Well, maybe we can have the Kroger representative actually talk to us about that.
Sure.
If you could, because what assurances then do we have that you will use local labor as part of the this project?
Sure. My name's Brianna Cotton. I'm with the Kroger Company. For every project that we do, we send it out to bid. So we gather both non-union, but also very important to us, the union contractors to come and bid the project. We understand the importance of having union tradesmen working on the project. But our company process is that we have to go through the bidding process. And so we always have union participation, but we don't know what percentage of it is union until we have it out to bid and the bids come back.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Schmidt?
I guess this question is for Austin. Maybe a follow-up, because I had similar questions, not necessarily related to Kroger, but in general, when we negotiate incentive packages, do we have an opportunity to at least encourage local labor be used? I mean, is that unusual, or is that something we could put into an incentive package?
That would be more of a legal question, I think, as to what's allowable.
Probably put anything in the contract, right? We could say people have to eat cornflakes.
I guess I'm asking, is that an unusual request?
Right.
And maybe that's not a question you can answer right now, but,
right.
but it's a legitimate question.
There is a clause in the agreement that says that the developer covenants and agrees to comply with the Illinois Prevailing Wage Act to the extent the developer's receipt of funds from the city pursuant to the agreement causes the developer to become subject to the Prevailing Wage Act. So I think that can definitely be of assistance. So.
And another issue, I really appreciate that Kroger is looking at, that they put in, I think you said 2 Connect Transit stops and opportunity for walkability for the surrounding neighborhoods. And I would also, I know we're not talking about site plans tonight, but I know the Planning Commission will be, and I'd like to very much encourage that we also talk about bike access and perhaps even thinking about making bike access along Jumer, along the south side there. The more
Trail, yeah.
Well, right, but Constitution Trail takes you into the chateau, and then as you go north, you end up, if you want to get to that area, you're on Jumer Drive, and if there were some kind of better marked, I know this because I bike to OSF College Avenue, and if there were even better biking access, that would be an additional strong asset, I think. And so I appreciate their attention to that, and whatever else we can do to encourage that would be great. Thank you.
I totally concur with what Alderwoman Schmidt has said. Burgess and Sage.
Three things I wanted to point out, and one is to highlight something you said during your presentation that I think is worth pulling out, and that is the comment that this may be the first Kroger marketplace in the state of Illinois. And I think that's an extraordinary thing that we are the very first community that they're choosing to make this type of investment in. I think unfortunately sometimes we're perhaps a bit too modest in what we have to offer, but we are a very thriving community. We have a stable economic base, and I think as a result, it is something that companies want to invest in. And I think we don't want to underplay that too much, what we have to offer. And I think our community will continue to support Kroger and embrace this new project very favorably. Number two, I think this is a nice reminder that when it comes to Bloomington versus Normal, companies don't see that dividing line, and that corporations will continue to move between our communities freely. And I think that what we can do as a council and as staff to make sure that it always is done in a way that is with the good of the community at large and cooperation is to remember that we need to keep those lines of communication open. And I think that we're working very hard to do that so that we're not competing against each other, but that we're all benefiting when these types of opportunities come to us. And number three, I just wanted to echo Karen's comments about accessibility. I'm really pleased to hear about how much thought has been put into traffic safety, how much thought has gone into pedestrian safety in making this accessible, that we're looking at this in a very comprehensive and a cohesive way and recognizing that people choose to travel in a variety of different ways, and they will access this store by car, they will access it by bus, and they will access it by bike as well as by walking. So I think it's really great that we're looking at that. I hope we can continue to look at other ways to improve that through improving the conditions on Hershey for pedestrians and Junior Drive for bicycle lanes. So thank you for all the hard work that's gone into it. I'm very excited about this project and continuing to move forward. Thank you.
Alderman Sage.
Thanks. I'll be brief. Want to say thanks to Kroger for your new investment in the Twin Cities. So thanks. And also to say to Austin and David, we've obviously been involved in a number of conversations about this over the months, and I just appreciate the professional approach and process that you've taken, that staff has taken in working through this, because this really is the way that, in my opinion, the way that economic development should work, and we're seeing that brought to fruition tonight. So thanks again for all of your efforts as well.
Thank you. Alderwoman Payne.
Well, thank you very much for all the hard work that you've done on this. I'm really excited about this new marketplace. I think that it will be a big asset to the neighborhood, and I just can't wait to see it get started. I would hope that having to adhere to the Prevailing Wage Act would ensure a good union participation in this project. And I'm so impressed with all the background work that you did before you began this and all the outreach you did. And thank you very much.
Okay. All right. At this point, an aye vote would be in favor. A nay is opposed. We didn't. I'm sorry. Oh, picky. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
Moved by Alderwoman Painter. Apologies. I'm returning back to the previous one. I needed to leave so Karen can get it first and second for me. And second by Alderwoman Howman. Okay. Now we have a motion on the floor and a second, and a aye vote would be in favor of this. Okay. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. We move right along to our budget, and we start with a presentation by our city manager and finance director, and then we have, again, this is just so that everybody understands, this is just an initial presentation by the city manager. The budget is on the website now, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the budget is on the website. Our fiscal year ends April 30th, so we would likely take final action on this in the first meeting of April. There's obviously going to be an opportunity for consistent public reaction and input, either at mayor's open houses or come and talk to us. We're going to be continuing to vet this budget and take input as we move forward. And so at this point, just wanted to make that clear. And in March, we have our day-long budget workshop. If you have nothing else to do on a Saturday, please come join us for the entire day to talk about wonderful things in the Bloomington budget. And I want to thank our city manager and our staff and finance department for all the hard work they've done. Obviously, we've had many challenging years. At this point, we've certainly had the budget task force come up with many recommendations. Some of them we're still vetting, like a fee study and golf courses and things like that. But at this point, we have a budget that is being presented by the city manager, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hales. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. If I can just add one other thought, as the Mayor mentioned, the timeline. Following that budget work session on Saturday, March 12th, we'll have our formal and official budget public hearing on Monday, March 28th. So that will be the date in which the council can receive any and all comments regarding this recommended budget. And then we're tentatively scheduling council consideration of budget adoption and on Monday, April 11th. And this would be the budget as amended from the recommended budget which is being presented to you tonight. I'd like to begin, and this is going to be a kind of a two-part presentation tonight. I'll make some introductory comments, and then Patty Lynn Silva, our finance director, is going to walk through some of the specifics. But I think it's very important, first and foremost, to share not only with the council, but with the public at large, that the overall financial condition of the city of Bloomington is very strong. In fact, I would say it's stronger than at any time that I've had the privilege of being your city manager since January of 2009. And that is greatly due to your actions as a city council. The adoption of the 1% sales tax has allowed us to bring to you a very positive budget, unlike what we had to deal with back in the spring of 2009. And that was a budget that had some massive eliminations of full-time jobs, some layoffs, and it was just the type of situation and time that, you know, we hope we never have to go back to. I also think it's very strong because your action this last fall was being watched by credit rating agencies. In fact, because of our situation last year and the potential for this structural deficit, these are the things that credit raters look at, and they see what is the policy decision makers going to do about situations when you have a gap between available revenue and some of your needs, especially in the area of operating needs. They also are going to be watching in the near future when we roll out and have you consider and adopt a minimum 5-year capital improvement plan or budget. I'll get to that in just a minute. But once again, because of your action and the adoption and approval of previous budgets, our fund balance in the general fund is very strong, reaching back up closer to 15%. And we, for the first time in many years, are looking at being able to pay with cash for a good portion of our capital equipment purchases, which is the first in many years. I also want to point out that this particular budget is drastically different than last year. Last year's budget was really kind of a Band-Aid budget. It was a time when, unfortunately, we had to really get and hold the line, not only on many of our operating expenses, but capital equipment as well. And we were waiting for really leadership to be shown by you. And prior to that, the Budget Task Force, which was appointed by the mayor and supported by the council, was also asked to begin to look at ways we could bridge that structural deficit. I will leave to Patty Lynn Silva for a little bit more discussion of how that particular structural deficit was ultimately closed. But needless to say, we are embarking on, with this budget, the beginning of a long-term financial sustainability program. And I'll speak to that a little bit more. But I think it's important to point out, City of Bloomington is in the same boat, same fiscal situation that the federal government, the state government, and cities across the nation, and that is our cost for existing programs and existing services is increasing at a rate generally exceeding that of available revenue. And that's a fact of life. However, as you have indicated and the Budget Task Force has indicated, we have to come up with a solution so that in the years ahead, we begin to make sure that we eliminate any sort of gap between our projected revenues and expenditures. We fully understand and realize that it is going to be rare for the council to act on a major revenue enhancement such as you did with the home rule sales tax. We also realize as a senior management team that we also need to do some of the heavy lifting and assist you again in a high priority, which is to put together a roadmap of how we can ensure that our very strong financial condition continues in the road ahead. I want to point out that we've also been very cognizant of the 5 council priorities you set last year. And just to recap, they are economic development, infrastructure, financial planning, reduced emergency response times, and downtown implementation plan. This budget and the upcoming 5-year capital improvement program will continue to reflect these priorities in the financial plan and the operational plan which is contained therein for the next 12-month period. If I can, I do also want to point out that home rule sales tax, which again Patty will get into some specificity, is also demonstrating your commitment to be strong partners and collaborators with other governmental entities. As indicated earlier tonight, this particular budget will continue our partnership with Connect Transit to match a pro rata contribution by the town of Normal as requested by Connect Transit so that they can in turn leverage additional dollars that we hope will be there at the state of Illinois, even though they haven't adopted a budget for this year. Who knows about next year? But we're going to be ready to have that money setting aside there if they can leverage that for some significant additional revenue to expand Connect Transit service here in the Bloomington Normal area. We've also put in this budget as a placeholder funding for Be an Advantage. Now, of course, the specifics of how the Be an Advantage Leadership Council may want to tap this hasn't been decided, but as I've spoken with the town of Normal city manager, both entities see this money being set aside for Being an Advantage recommendations or other recommendations and ideas that may come forward on how this region can be extremely competitive and proactive in trying to not only retain businesses, help them expand, but attract new businesses to this area as well. It is also, this budget will, as a significant, I think, achievement, going to double the amount of street resurfacing that we will have this summer. Jim Karch, our Public Works Director, and his staff is preparing just a little under a $5 million bid proposal, which he indicated today should go out onto the street within a few weeks, so that this summer we'll be able to double the amount of street resurfacing coming forward for this summer as opposed to last. But I think there's something in this budget that is even as important as some of the things I've just mentioned, and that is we're proposing, with your support, that we continue a very aggressive and a proactive priority-based budgeting initiative. Yes, we've had discussion of that, but let me just kind of recap what priority-based budgeting, as defined by City of Bloomington, can mean to long-term financial planning. As you know, Um, this particular balanced budget will have its challenges down the year, in future years. Patty will share with you that because of your action on the home rule sales tax, we look in very strong financial shape for a couple of years. But once again, the pressures inherent in operating costs will continue to grow. What we're going to be asking each of the directors to do is to, within their areas of responsibility, to prioritize each of the programs that they have a role in managing and have accountability for. Now, many of these programs cut across individual departments, but also eventually you'll have a prioritized list of all these programs that are contained within this $206 million budget. We will also be associating with each of those programs a definition of what is the current service level. What basically are we getting for the money you have allocated in each of these departments for those various programs. We're also going to be looking at and trying to identify for the higher priority items what is the amount of resources that will be required to fully fund these high priority programs, especially where the current level of funding is inadequate for these high priority programs to meet not only yours, but the community's expectations. Because some of these programs will be rated at a lower priority basis, they will be recommending, and then after my review and as a group review, we'll bring to you on a quarterly basis both recommendations for what should be higher priority programs, but also what are some of those lower priority programs that should either be eliminated or reduced. Proceeds from which could go to the higher priority programs that are in need of additional resources in order to maximize their effectiveness and to meet the customer service demands. As this council previously acted upon, there was an increase in the rental inspection fee program, which in turn allowed us to hire an additional inspector, which will in turn allow us to more effectively and expeditiously begin to address life safety conditions, which we know are out there and is having an impact on the many tenants living within the city of Bloomington. This particular exercise will continue and it'll be ongoing. We know that the directors need assistance. Everyone in the senior management team and probably every one of our employees, because of our lean staff, has a challenge because the workload is great. Everyone wants to achieve an ever greater level of outstanding performance. However, because of this staff level and the limitation on time and resources, many employees feel that they wish they could do more and to further improve. We do have funding in this budget to assist them in this whole endeavor of priority-based budgeting. Why are we looking to the senior management team and the directors to undertake this? I think it's simple, because they are the ones, together with their employees, that are closest to the programs and the services which are being provided. They know the ins and outs. They know the the particular specifics and the technicalities associated, and they're the ones that ultimately can help share with us and the public what they would offer for your further consideration. So this is going to be an ongoing program, and in fact, even today or in the next weeks, we will be beginning to articulate and plan for their initial reports so that in the first quarter of fiscal year 2017, we'll start to bring to you their recommendations and how they are continuing to implement priority-based budgeting as a process to bring to you, the City Council, to make those final, both priority decisions, resource allocation decisions, and also to determine if we should make changes to right size the programs and services we offer. I think this is a process that needs to be constant. We need to have some uniformity, consistency throughout, and it will be a challenge to implement, but it is necessary because as you will shortly see, if we do not do this, once again, in the years ahead, we will begin to see, as we project it today, structural deficits to reappear in the years ahead. And let me just finish with one final comment. As I indicated over the weekend, and as I've shared with the mayor, within the next 60 days, we will bring to you the first 5-year capital improvement program or budget that the city of Bloomington has had since I've been here and came in 2009. We've had a great beginning to this CIP with your adoption of a number of infrastructure master plans. We still have a few more to bring to you, but major capital improvements need to be part of this CIP, which will have a very detailed and I think all-inclusive element of communication, sharing with our community where will some of the more larger investments be made in the years ahead. As the mayor recommended, one of the first debut projects is to issue a bond in the $20 to $30 million range. This particular bond we will be bringing to you as part of the CIP in the near future. Why is this necessary in the short term rather than the long term? And that is because we need probably a good 9 months or longer to do the work this year so that in the summer of 2017, or probably more appropriately in the spring of 2017, we can move forward with probably the largest street resurfacing project that Bloomington has ever undertaken. It is going to take resources much greater than what we have within the ranks of our employees. We're going to have to reach out and have many of these engineering companies in the area assist us because it's just not identifying what roads to resurface. We have to get underground. We have to televise sanitary sewer pipes, stormwater pipes, look at the condition of water pipelines, coordinate, communicate with all the other public utility companies, make sure that they don't have plans to dig up these streets and make changes and improvements to their utility lines. All this work, together with any additional technical evaluation that needs to be done, has to be completed. It has to be done in a timely manner. It has to be coordinated. And when we think about 9 to 10 months out, we're going to have to be very, very aggressive in getting the outside help, and the proceeds of the bond will help us achieve that expenditure this year. Once again, that'll be coming back to you. The second major item we've been looking at to begin implementation of this 5-year program is stormwater and sanitary sewer. We have some very significant projects that are critical to development, housing and commercial development on the east side of Bloomington. As many of you have heard, but maybe some of you have not heard, we have an ongoing serious inflow and infiltration problem where water that should not but is getting into our sanitary sewer collection system. During heavy rain events, it overcharges the so-called Randolph water reclamation plant. That cannot continue. And even in permits, as we've had discussions with Brindward officials, IEPA knows that there's a problem. They want us to correct it, and since we're the owners of the collection system, we have some big major projects to bring forward. Furthermore, as we know, we have probably 100 miles of 100-plus-year-old sanitary sewer lines in the older part of town. This will continue a very aggressive approach. So be looking for the 5-year capital improvement program, which could eventually rise to 50 to 80 million. Keep in mind, we're not going to get into all the details of how to fund it, but we're very fortunate because of your action that 50% of our outstanding general obligation debt will be paid off in 10 years. We have an excellent opportunity ahead of us to take advantage of that step down in those annual cost obligations to bring forward a CIP that will begin to address this. And once again, the credit rating agencies are looking for solutions to these particular capital needs we have. So with that, at this point in time, I'm very pleased to bring to you, at least on a high level, this particular budget that for the first time will exceed 200 millions, but it will continue to make investments in those areas that are critical to the future quality of life and the continued reliance our community has in the vital services we provide. As Patty's going to come up and be setting up, if you would be doing that, what I'd like to do is to express my appreciation to Patty Lynn Silva, to Carla Morella, to all the directors and the many, many hundreds of employees who have played a part in the preparation of this budget and all their hard work. If anything, there's just been a lot of last-minute changes and modifications, but this type of budget wouldn't come to you without the hard work, the dedication, and the long hours of many of these people. And I have to point out, Carla, every time I leave here at a council meeting, one of the lights I'm always seeing left on is our budget manager, Carla Morella. She probably has been spending too much time away from home and her son, and we really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn the time over to Patty Lynn Silver. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the budget tonight. I've been told that a great presentation either opens with a joke or a lie. Since I don't know any jokes, I'll just tell you, it's a pleasure to be here tonight to present the budget to you at 9 o'clock at night. But actually, this is the best budget that I've had the opportunity to present in my tenure here. I'm in my 4th year with the city. Seems much longer, but we've come a long way. And David kind of stole my thunder because I wanted to publicly thank those who did raise the sales tax. I know that was a very controversial and courageous move. I know you took a lot of flack for it, but it was necessary. And I hope with this presentation tonight that you will see where exactly the dollars of the sales tax are going and what it's been able to do. And so from the bottom of my heart, the finance director's heart, I really appreciate it. And as a citizen, as a finance director. This is a major packet that was put on the dais for you tonight, but keep a lot of its appendix. I'll just say that right now for you to kind of read on your own. It's an overview of the budget, but we're going to talk about the citywide budget because it is $206 million on the expenditure side. How the expenditures have changed, the basic highlights of what are in it. Then we're going to deep dive on the general fund because we want to know where most of our money is going. The general fund, of course, is 50% of our budget. We're going to break down those changes for you. We're going to give you some detail that I'm not going to touch on. You guys can touch on that. What happened to the deficit? How did we resolve it before use of the sales tax? Where did the home rule sales tax go? Do we still have a structural deficit? And the 5-year projection as reprojected. So I hope that answers most of the questions that you're getting from your constituents, and I hope it's more clear than mud. We'll also discuss the other major funds. We don't have time to go over all the city funds today. Many of them are just flow-throughs for accounting reasons, but we do budget in them as required. So of course, the general fund, we're always talking about it. It's 51% of our budget, and these are kind of the other popular funds that we talk about. Water and general fund alone make up 62% of your budget. The citywide budget expenditures are changing by $20 million, $20.5 million, or 11% over last year. Here's the breakdown. The general fund is $10.2 million of that. The capital fund is $5.1 million. The enterprise funds have been grouped together are $4.7 million. We have some self-insurance funds. We're self-insured for workers' comp and health insurance. That's about $2 million. The debt service we're paying out this year is going down $2 million, not what we're funding, but what's going out. It's a long story. And the special revenue funds are 146. And we do have the J.M. Scott Trust on the bottom. That's our only trust fund. That's down slightly in what they're choosing to spend. The highlights, capital improvements. It just warms my heart that we are doing so much infrastructure. I gotta tell you, I would wake up in the middle of the night worried about infrastructure.
Tim's nodding too in the back.
And all my peers. We're getting it done. We're getting the planning done, and now we're moving into the rate side of it, and hopefully at some point the bond side of it. So streets, sidewalks. In here we have money for facilities. The sewer and storm. What you'll see tonight has no reflection of the upcoming rate recommendations that we're bringing you in that model. If that was to go through, we would amend the budget. So this is just based on current funding levels. And water infrastructure. We've got capital equipment. We've got fire engines, long deferred fire engines, police cars, mowers. The Parks Department has been waiting for mowers for years. And network infrastructure. Funding for the community, the mental health, Connect Transit, McLean County History Museum, and Beyond Advantage, to name a few. City initiatives, codification of the city code. Not real exciting, but it's got to be done. Zoning ordinances, body-worn cameras, downtown parking evaluation, operations facilities. These are things that are just some of the city initiatives that are built into the budget. And this is talking about all funds. Deep diving into the general fund. The change in the general fund is $10.2 million on the expenditure side, or a 10% increase. I know that looks really scary, but let me break that down for you. Capital is up. These are just the changes, so not the total budgets, but capital is up $4 million. That's wonderful. There's another $2.4 million earmarked out of the sales tax for roads. That's in there. We have payments to other agencies, $3.5 million up. 2.4 of that, again, is for mental health. That's the other quarter point of the sales tax. And then we have some dollars increasing for both Connect Transit and Bloomington Normal Advantage. Labor in total is up 1.2. It's actually only 2% of increase in total. All of our labor-related accounts, and I can show that to you. We're making a contribution back to fund balance. So we are putting back into our savings account $1.4 million. So we are not spending all the sales tax. $1.4 million is going back into fund balance to get us up to that 15% that we need, that we should be at. As a $200 million organization, our credit rating agencies want to know in our biggest fund that we have at least 15%. Some communities have 20, 40%. I don't know that you need that much, but we are going to get there. The transfer to other funds is up. We took the opportunity to try to help some of our other funds get up to 15% in their reserves and our other operating funds. And our core operating expenses are down. I will let you read this at your leisure, but I do just want to point out the first yellow highlight, and that is our increase in labor. For your total labor costs, salaries, healthcare, the pension that includes the police pension, professional development, workers' comp insurance, and employee relations to only go up 2%. Is holding the line. Our core expenses, they're down. Our general liability insurance, fuel is down, utilities is down, outside services is not up as much as it could be, materials are down. We've got bad debt way down. This is in large part due to the hard work of the staff, negotiating contracts, bidding contracts, rates, all the things that we do our due diligence all year that we don't always get to see the fruits of that because we have other budget issues. Payments to other agencies is obviously up, as discussed. Our capital includes not only transfers to our capital improvement fund, but we've got some debt service increasing because we are going to buy equipment on our capital lease program again. But this has afforded us to get some bigger pieces of equipment that were much needed. And again, the contribution at the bottom. The structural deficit, what happened to it? Everybody wants to know. This is my attempt to explain it because there are hundreds of accounts, hundreds of things affecting the accounts, but I think you'll be very pleased. So the deficit was projected almost 1 year ago today when I presented the proposed budget for 16. We do a 5-year budget. So we projected FY17 last year this time during the 16 budget. These are the assumptions that we used. We used some broad assumptions. Salaries we assume are going to go up rounded because the overtime accounts in there and whatnot. Part-time help, 3%. That came in at 0.55. Health insurance came in better. Some of our other stuff, workers' comp, not so much. Police and fire contribution, way down. We were assuming that it was going to go up 17%. It went up almost 6%. Our general liability insurance went negative. This is great. Our rates are going down. Fuel is way down. It's down for everybody. Utilities, but we also negotiate that fuel, and we also negotiate the utility rates or but lock in, and sometimes we ride the market. What we're doing is working. The enterprise transfers are up, and again, that's our attempt to try to get some reserve balances out there, and I'll explain that later. And our revenues, which we thought, and this is, by the way, without the sales tax for revenues, we thought our revenues weren't going to go up at all. In fact, we thought they were going to go down slightly for 17, and they're up 1.22. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we've had some positive trends. But this is why the sales tax was so badly needed, because our revenues were only going to go up 1.22, and as you can see, even with our revised expenditures, net, our expenditures are going up more. The cost of doing business is going up more. The resolution of the deficit before the use of the sales tax. This is really key because I don't want to minimize those reductions in expenditures that everybody worked towards giving and getting. We've reduced overtime. We've reduced commodities. We've reduced our contractual services. We've reduced the budget by $5.1 million before throwing revenue at the sales tax. Before, I think you know what I mean. I'm sorry, it's after 9 o'clock. Our positive revenue projections, 1.2% only gives us $1.1 million. So can you imagine if salaries did just and overtime and part-time help all went up 3%? This would never cover that, just the cost of materials going up. So without the sales tax, we would have had a remaining deficit of $1.1 million. So, we take very seriously what you guys do, and we took very seriously the budget task force, not just in finance, but everywhere. And directors in every department worked hard to hold the line. In fact, they were so afraid of Carla, they didn't spend the current year's budget. We're returning some funds on the current year's budget. I'm only kidding. She's the hammer. Here's a breakdown of that. And this backs up a little bit to the other screen, but salaries and benefits, fuel, utilities, and materials. The pension was really a gift. Bad debt is down. Professional development is not a great thing to bring down, but we did it, and we did have some minor increases. This in this case, would represent an increase. Where did the sales tax go? If I had a nickel for every time I heard, no. Well, just nice bar chart here. You got the big ones, mental health, 2.428619, which is estimated quarter point of our sales tax, is going to mental health. Another 2.4 is going to street infrastructure. That's the new part. Last year we had the local motor fuel, 2.4, so we have a total of $5 million or $4.8 million in revenue being used for roads. I would just point out is as they're bidding the $5 million for road, there's another I can't quite read this, but I think it's $4.8 million in state motor fuel tax funds that will be used for roads as well. So you have those two together, plus the work that our street maintenance department does, you're pretty much at $10 million in roads this year without a bond. We've got the $1 million increase going to Connect Transit and Bloomington Normal Advantage. We already give money to Connect Transit. This represents the increase. For the first time ever, as David mentioned, we have been able to use some cash, $1 million in cash, for capital improvements. The little bit of capital that we have done has been on credit card. We have always financed it. Our capital equipment is still being financed, but a healthy budget would have cash for capital and cash for capital equipment so that you could pay cash for some of your expenditures, and that we're working towards this healthy model, and we're proposing to move that back in. Let's start moving back in some cash for capital. It's very important to demonstrate that you can do that. Here's the 1.4 going back to fund balance. We actually booked an expense for $1.4 million, part of why your expense is going up, because you have to appropriate anything you spent that will go back into your fund balance. So it's a separate account that we made this year to show that we're putting money back in there. And then this part here, the 1.3 for capital equipment and general fund operations, basically the 7.86 million is kind of what's going to multiple line items. Pick any that you like that might be going up. And about the $500,000 if 300,000 less, so about 300, let's call that 600. $300,000 less would be in our normal budget. We added a couple of bigger pieces of equipment that were desperately needed by the fire department, which brought that number up. So basically, this would be our normal operations or that $1 million deficit that we use the sales tax for. So we did have some adds, but they're the things that we need. If we have cash for capital improvements, then those emergency repairs that sneak up on us in some of our facilities and stuff, we'll be able to address them. And hopefully before they become emergency repairs and save us 40%. Do we still have a structural deficit? This is the general fund for the next 5 years. If you look at this line here, my projection is that we will have a balanced budget for the next 3 years. We are going to continue to hold the line on those same expenditures so that as many of the discretionary operating accounts that we have, we hold so that we can, try to work this model for as long as we can because I think we can do it. I think we can do it. If you look at the bottom there, this line is unfunded capital requests going out for these 5 years. So we have worked in capital this year, but we get many, many requests, and we can't fund them. So that's when you want to start talking about a bond and possibly inserting back some debt service. Our ending fund balance, as David put here, is just shy of 15% with that contribution coming back in. And this first column will not add down for you only because I forced the ending fund balance to show that expenditure of $1.4 million as a revenue in there. We have to appropriate it. It's a long story, but I'd be happy to get into that on an earlier evening. This is just kind of the budget overview. I'm just throwing this in here because it's really ugly, but if you look over here at the percent of fund balance of our funds now, David, how many funds when you first started had a negative fund balance or no cash at all, including the general fund 6 or 7 years ago? Who else was here? I mean, I've never heard of a general fund kind of being in the red in my career. If you look at these numbers, we've only got a couple of real soft areas that we're working on. And just to clear up that comment on the U.S. Cellular for Gary, we normally have never presented SIAM operated. SIAM manages, their operations is about $3 million. We combine that with the additional that the city gives for capital and stuff this year. So we have a full picture now of the Coliseum here based on their monthly reports. We just go ahead and book them into our financials. So we put that there because we know we're going to be talking a lot about that in the next year, and it gives kind of the best picture. Now, we don't get all the detail. We don't do the accounting for them. Just wanted to make that clear. But we are booking their monthly reports against their budget to reflect their activity as best we can. So that's one that, now that we see the full picture, okay, now maybe we should be working towards a 15% fund balance there. But in general, this is exceptional. We've come a long way. Just quickly, I need to go over the other major funds with you, but here is the 5-year projection for the water department. You can see they're spending a lot more than their revenue. That's because they have almost 100% fund balance. They've been saving their money for capital with our new water director. That's going to happen. And as you look out, they are in a good position. When you get to the yellow here, what we did was show capital requests that they are not able to fund. That means on a cash basis. They would be out of fund balance. So in year 2018, Bob's asked for $12 million. Bob's asked for his capital in this expenditure number, but he's going to get $3 million less because we have to leave 15% in his fund balance. Or we work to issue a bond so he can do the work that he needs to do. Sewer and storm, same issue here. This does not reflect any forthcoming recommendations. Up on the right-hand side, I tried to give you what we know of is the outstanding capital needs. Water will have to go through the same thing that sewer and storm did. Sewer and storm had a master plan and then a rate study. Water is going through a master plan in their budget for 17, and that will probably follow a rate study. Storm is the same thing, but storm really can't afford any capital. They have a lot less fund balance than sewer. So both, I don't want to keep beating sewer and storm. You've heard a lot about that. And solid waste. Solid waste, I just want to point out that this is the transfer from the general fund here. I broke that out. That is included in the revenue number above. And the appendix is just full of lots and lots of detail for you guys to back up everything that I've said. I'd be happy to continue to meet with you as a council individually, anytime, the next 60 days, whatever I can answer for you. But that really completes my presentation, and I'm ready for any questions you may have.
Right. Just to clarify again for the audience that this is just the presentation of the city manager's budget at 500 feet or so. This is only the beginning of a 2-month process as we consider this, and we're going to have, again, a budget day. We'll have a public hearing, probably 4 or 5 open houses between now and then. So there's definitely opportunity for public input and discussion, and it is online. So with that, questions of Ms. Silva or...
I'm not going to keep you very long. I just have one real quick, simple thing. Taking out that 1% that we just added for the sales tax and trying to forecast where we're going, I'm just trying to get a feel for how our economy is doing more or less on a month-to-month basis here. Can you tell me where, it's been a while since we've really talked about that as a group. Where are we? Where have we been in the last 3-4 months? And what, with you've really done a lot of work here and very commendable, but I'm worried about what our tax receipts are really going to look like, and I'm doing the what-if thing here. So.
Oh, I understand. I do that a lot. When you have so many revenues, a large part of your general fund revenues that is so affected by economic turns, it is very difficult to budget. And as you guys know, we were seeing this with sales tax. We did bottom out. And this year, as we've been reporting monthly to you in our monthly report, we have seen some positive. So that tells me we hit the bottom and we're coming back up. I don't have the latest. It's in the city manager's report.
As I can recall, we have the 2 sales tax numbers, the state 1% and the home rule. One's up 4% over the year before, and the other is about a 2.5% above last year. So there is some positives.
Yeah.
There's some that, aren't making that rebound, but income tax was even up more substantially, 15 to 20%, I think, up.
Income tax was an anomaly. We benefited from some legislative changes to the tune of about $600,000 in the current year budget. We've been told by IML that it's not going to reoccur. So we haven't built that in for next year. But even if we're up 4% and 2% in those 2 categories, we'll never reach the high. Our high was really 14, and we're still, I think, $1 or $2 million down in each over our high. It's hard to know what that is. What's your ceiling? What's your low? We have 10 years of data that we look at. We have a month-by-month rolling trend. It's all based on consumer buying, and we're losing internet sales rapidly, especially in categories of electronics and apparel. So, and many of our revenues, like income tax, we can't even get the data from because of proprietary reasons. So we just have to rely on, our lobbying groups to tell us what's going on. It's difficult, but we do put a lot of time and consideration into our estimates.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, Patty Lynn, Paul, and everybody, and Mr. Carl and Mr. Hales, thank you so much for all your hard work on this. I know it's been obviously challenging. We're going to begin to process this, look at all this fun bedtime reading for the next couple months, and we look forward to your continued comments and questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay. At this point, unless there's something else, I will turn it over to Mr. Hales. Oh, for city manager's comments.
Don't have anything else. Just hope you don't catch what I've had or struggling with things.
Sorry about that. I hope you feel better. Anyway, the only thing that I have is just to want to let everybody know that a few of us are going to One Voice next week. That's one of those whirlwind trips. You leave really early in the morning on Tuesday, and then we're all day Wednesday, and then hopefully it won't snow in Washington and we won't be stuck coming back on Thursday. No. I've been there, done that a couple times actually. But anyway, so I sort of look forward to those of you who are joining us, and Alderman Fruin, you have some aldermanic comments.
I just want to announce to the staff that David will not be into work tomorrow the way he sounds up here, so I think we ought to just let him sleep in and not worry about calling in sick.
Alderwoman Schmidt.
A couple quick items. Last council meeting, we looked at a proposal for how we get items on the agenda from Mboka, Scott, and me. Defer that until Alderman Black is back. I think we've had some back and forth. I also wanted to speak to Mr. Grant from Phoenix Towers, brought up the issue of Connect Transit, and I took his issue to Andrew Johnson and Judy Buchanan, and they were immediately very, very responsive to the concerns and made it clear to me that they would be circling back around with him and that was not the end of the conversation. So I didn't want anybody leaving here with the idea that Connect Transit was not listening to them. And I have a call into him, haven't had a chance to talk with him to make sure he's on board, and I'm sure Connect Transit will be talking with him some more.
Andrew's in the audience, just FYI. Okay. Alderman Lau.
Yeah, just to add on, we've already had that conversation about Wood Hill Towers, and he's assured me that we're going to have a very good service there, and we're watching, so thank you.
Okay. On that cheery note, gosh, under 2.5 hours. What fun. Although we started 4.5 hours ago. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman, second by Alderwoman Schmidt, even though they were perhaps simultaneously. All in favor signify by saying aye. We're adjourned. Thank you so much.